And the title of the message is Valiant in the Valley. Valiant in the Valley. And the word valiant means courageous. Having courage is what that means. And I want you to go to chapter 13. And I'm going to use one verse. I'm going to talk to you about what Job is going through. But I wanted to read this particular scripture to you and what Job says in the midst of all that's going on. He makes this statement in chapter 13, verse 15. He says, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him, but I will maintain my own ways before him." Again, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him, but I will maintain my own ways before him. Now, I don't think there's any other person probably that's ever been born that went through as much that Job went through. I mean, the afflictions and the troubles and the struggles that he has gone through is like going through 2 lifetimes of things that somebody might go through. In fact, probably 5 lifetimes, maybe would never go through all that Job has gone through. But he endures this series of setbacks, and the majority of things that happen to him really happened to him in just one day, what he has to deal with. Yet he was valiant in the valley. So I want you to look at the first thing that we see about Job is the casualties in the valley. And this comes out of chapter 1, and it comes really from verse 14 on down. And the first thing we see about him, that he endured the loss of his holdings. And what I mean by that is that the Bible tells us that in that one day that Job lost all of his cattle, he lost all of his sheep, he lost all of his donkeys, all his livestock. Basically, he lost his livelihood all in a matter of moments, all in a one-day period. And so his livelihood has been stripped away from him. But not only does he lose his holdings, he also loses his helpers. It also tells us in chapter 1 that all his servants are either killed or died by fire, but there's always one that can come and tell him the bad news. You ever had someone come and they tell you, "Well, I've got bad news to tell you. Don't kill the messenger. I've got bad news." So there's always someone that comes. And so he's lost his holdings. He's lost all that he's ever acquired. He's lost his servants that have helped him run everything. But not only that, he loses his heirs. And that's the worst thing, because he loses his whole family, his children. His children are celebrating. His sons and his daughters are at a particular place, a house. Maybe they got together for a celebration, and they're celebrating. And all of a sudden, it says a strong wind. It doesn't really say if it's a tornado or whatever it was, but whatever it was, is a tragedy comes, and the house falls upon his family, and it kills all of his children. So he's lost his holdings, he's lost his helpers, he's lost the heirs of his family. All his children have passed away now. And I can only imagine how he must have felt this tragedy, this adversity, the casualties that he's enduring in his life at this time. But he's still being valiant in this situation. But to make matters even worse than that, which you think, well, how can it get much worse? I've lost everything I own. I've lost everybody that works for me. I've lost my business, my money. But worse than that, I've lost my family. But now, in chapter 2, it tells us that the devil has attacked his life, and is attacking his life this whole time, but it's beginning to attack his health. And he has boils that come upon his whole body. And it's all from head to toe. He's covered in these boils, these sores that come up. And it says he sits down in a pile of ashes and begins to scrape the sores that are on his life. So now you see, I can't help but emphasize, he's lost everything he owns. He's lost his children. Now his health is being stripped away from him. But in all that is going on, he never curses God. He never gets mad at God. He's still dealing with all this. And I want you to understand the second thing that we see about this is his conduct in the valley. We see the casualties. Now look at what happens to him. Job is here. He's a man. He's got sorrow. Job's got suffering in his life. He's set back in his life. But he makes an outstanding statement that we're dealing with today, that verse that we are dealing with. Listen to what it says again in that verse 15 of chapter 13. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. And what he's saying is this, that no matter what happens, I'm still going to trust the Lord. No matter what happens. Now, he didn't understand. I want you to understand this. I'm going to use understand a couple of times here. I want you to understand that he does not understand all that's going on. We find ourselves in many situations like that where we don't understand the situation. Why is this happening? Why is this going on? But the Bible says, yet I will trust him. Proverbs 3:5 says this, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not into thine own understanding. There's many times in our life when things are going on that we cannot understand it, but the Bible is telling us to trust in the Lord even in the midst of whatever is going on. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, there's not one person in this room that has not dealt with something that Job has dealt with. And Job is dealing with all of it at one time. But he doesn't understand what's going on. Another thing is this, he is hurting and he's suffering, but he still declares, yet will I trust him. Now you understand, I've got to get you to that point where you understand. He is dealing with everything that one of us may deal with in a lifetime, or maybe 10 lifetimes. He's dealing with it all in a matter of days. But he says, yet I will trust him. Listen to what Psalm 73:26 says. My flesh and my heart faileth, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. So the psalmist is saying, my flesh and my heart may fail me, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. So Job doesn't know. He's suffering, he doesn't understand it. He's hurting, he doesn't understand it. Now he is this right here. He's unsure about the future. Wouldn't you be unsure about the future? What in the world is going on? I've had things happen. I'm sure you have too. You have made this statement. What in the world is going on? What have I done to make God mad at me? I mean, why is God mad at me? And you begin to evaluate your life. What have I done to bring this upon myself? He is unsure about the future, but he says, yet will I trust him even though I'm unsure. Philippians 1:6, listen to this. Being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. So that verse is telling us there that no matter what is going on in your life, Christ has begun a good work in your life, and God is going to see it through to the very end. Now, there's going to be people in your life that you're going to have in your life. It might be friends, it may be family. They may bail out on your life along the way. You've all had that. I've had that. Had friends or people I thought were my friends, but let a tragedy or some kind of situation come along and they bail out on me along the way. You've had that happen too. And Job is going to have that happen. We're going to see that in just a minute. But here's the thing. God is going to see you through to the very end. He started a good work in you, and he's going to perform it to the very end, all the way to the end. So he's hurting, he's suffering, he's unsure about the future. And now this is another thing. I use this right here. He's greatly reduced. And I use that because of this. Again, he has lost his physical health. He's lost his financial life. He's lost his relationships. Only left now is just him and his wife. That's it. And the next thing, but he says this, yet will I trust him. And then this happens. His friends turn on him and come and say, Job, what sin is in your life to have God to put all this on you? So we see this right here. Now his friends have turned on him. He's got 3 friends that come and basically accuse him of living in sin. But Job says, yet will I trust him. Now I've got you all the way to this point. So what is the conquest in the valley? how can I be valiant in the valley? How was he valiant in the valley? I mean, what did he do, or what caused him to be able to deal with all the tragedy and all that was going on in his life? I mean, from losing his finances, from losing his health, to dealing with a loss of family. What was it that made him able to be able to stand in the valley and have courage and have trust in God? How was that even possible to do? And the first thing is this, is the conquest in the valley starts with this. He had a relationship with God. He was unshakable because he has a relationship with God. This started all the way back. Go to Job chapter 1. The very first verse tells you this. Listen to what it says. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright and one that feared God and eschewed evil. Now, I'm using King James Version, so I don't want you to misunderstand that word perfect. That doesn't mean that he's never done anything wrong. What that means is this, is that Job is a man that loves God, and he's living his life for God. He's got a relationship with God. He loves God. And here's the thing. He has experienced the presence of God in his life. He's got a relationship with him. So he's got a relationship with God. So he's got God's presence. But also, during the midst of knowing God, he's got the peace that surpasses all understanding. So he's got God's presence in his life. He's got God's peace in his life. And so he understands the power of God in his life. You understand that? And it all comes from knowing God. And I've heard this said, and you have too, probably heard this said, or maybe even said it yourself. I don't see how anybody can go through anything and not know God. And that's the truth. How can they go through anything and not know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior? Because when you know Jesus, you know his presence. When you know Jesus, you know his peace. When you know Jesus, you know his power. And you know that no matter whatever happens, no matter what comes your way, when you have a relationship with God, God is never going to leave you. He's never going to forsake you. He's going to be there with you through the valley and on the mountaintop. So here is the first reason that he is valiant in the valley, is because he has a relationship with God and he knows God. The next thing is this. He was unshakable in his faith because he was resigned to God. And what I mean by that is this, is that Job has a relationship with God, and he has submitted himself to God. He has surrendered and trusted his life with God. Many times, I have been this way, and I'm sure you probably have too. Many times, Tom thinks, I know what's best. I know what's best, and I know how to take care of this. And God, I can run my life, and I can do this. But here's the thing, I can't. And neither can you. Outside of God, you cannot run your life. You may try to run it, but you think that you can take care of everything. But so many things are out of your hands. And you got to trust God with your life. And here's the thing. No matter, in all that was happening, Job says, yet will I trust him. And I want to read a statement to you. This is from Charles Spurgeon, a pastor from years ago. He's called the Prince of Pastors. Listen to what he says. God is too good to be unkind, and he is too wise to be mistaken. And when we cannot trace his hand, we must trust his heart. Isn't that an awesome statement? Listen to it again. God is too good to be unkind, and he is too wise to be mistaken. And when we cannot trace his hand, we must trust his heart. So here's Job with a relationship with God. He is resigned to the fact that God is in control. I've submitted myself to God. I've surrendered myself to God. Listen to Proverbs 3, 6, and 7. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Be not wise in thy own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. So here's the main part of that is in all thy ways acknowledge him. And God is going to direct your path. How can you be valiant in the valley? Have a relationship with God. How can you be valiant in the valley? Be resigned to God and surrender to him. And the last thing is this right here that I see about Job was this. Is Job was unshakable in his faith, and he was valiant in the valley because he had a responsibility to God. And here's the thing, even though he was set back, Job knows that even though these things were happening in his life, that God is in control, and God sees everything that's going on, and he still has a life to live for God. Hebrews 10:38 says this, "Now the just shall live by faith, but if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him." Now again, listen to it. Now the just shall live by faith. That means everything that I see and all that's happening all the time, it's not always what it appears to be. Because God knows what's going on in my life. God sees the beginning from the end and the end from the beginning. God sees it. Think about this right here just for a moment. I don't do the knitting and all that stuff, and I can't do it because my hands are too big and I can't hold on to that stuff. And I don't know if I do it anyway, just to be honest. But I do know when people are doing rugs and they're doing all that stuff, if you see the back side of the rug and you walk by and you look at it and you go, man, that don't look too good. But when they flip it over to reveal what they have done, it's a beautiful piece of artwork. And that's the same thing in your life. And that's the same thing in my life. And it's the same thing in Job's life. Job realized that all this that's going on, God is still in control. And though I don't understand what's happening, yet will I trust him with my life because he's in control. With all that's going on right now in our world, and all that you see that's going on, I'm just like you, and every person that's alive would have to be honest, they're just like everybody else. Man, this is depressing. Man, this is discouraging. Man, I don't understand it. Here's the thing that I must resign myself to, and you must resign yourself to as a man of God or a woman of God. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him, because I know when I trust him, he's in control. He never left the throne. He does all that's going on doesn't catch him off guard. He knows exactly what's happening. So don't stop living for the Lord. Don't allow the devil to steal your joy. Don't allow the joy to steal you. Don't allow the devil to steal your victory. Trust God and be valiant in the valley.